change up and pull over? Or you guys, you got to move quickly and open it up?
Want to sit here, Kelby?
We're trying to help out, but there's other stuff going on.
I'm in the number one chair.
Actually, yeah, you should just
The number one chair compared to the, it's like in band, you know?
Not completely, but yeah.
I wouldn't know that because I think I played like third fiddle.
Brooklyn, are we ready?
I know I did. I did.
I certainly didn't play the fiddle, but
The
I strategically made sure I leave quieter than everyone else around me.
I only joined band.
Send it over. Okay, all right.
Counselor Perez on that. So.
We never had to choose.
Oh, good, thank
I
you.
was like in junior high, you had to choose.
Counselor Pareda, can you hear us? Oh, he can. All right. I'm gonna get the meeting started here.
I guess I'll go see.
All right. Good evening. Call to order the Common City Council, Brookings, Oregon. Our meeting for Monday, January 27th at 7 p.m. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Counselor Mulmore.
Here.
Counselor Pareda. Here. Counselor Martin.
Here.
Counselor Fulton. Here. Mayor Hodges.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to ceremonies, appointments, and announcements. Number one, we have the retirement of K9 Nova.
Mayor, Council, City Manager, good evening. I'm here tonight for two different things. The first one was for the recognition of retiring K9 Nova, along with her handler, Officer Jason Barricker. Unfortunately, on Monday, or rather on Saturday, Nova had some unexpected medical emergencies and passed away. So there still will be a recognition for Nova that Officer Barricker will accept, but we're going to reschedule that for another council meeting.
Okay, thank you. And then, thank you for that update. That's sad to hear. And then recognize Jeff Lee.
Sure. So I wanted to introduce to you this evening, currently Captain Lee, but soon to be the Operations Fire Chief Lee, that will take over that role February 1st. Jeff has been with the Brookings Fire Department for nearly 20 years. Is this your 20 years?
I'm going on, yeah, 20 years.
20 years this year. He's been the fire captain for 12 years and was a volunteer before that. He's done many great things with the fire departments to this point and will continue to do so. Certainly has the support of the fire department, the officers and firefighters of the department, as well as many other fire professionals within the county. So this Thursday, he will be pinned. If you're able to make it, we'll pin him at that time. But I wanted to have future, soon-to-be Operations Fire Chief Jeff Lee come up and just recognize him for the great things he's done, and congratulations on being selected.
Thanks.
We won't make you give a speech. Thank you.
Thank you.
He's doing training tonight, so.
Yeah,
Training night.
and I don't know Jeff that well, but from what I do know, he's probably happier training than giving a speech. So. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chief.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, moving on to item E, oral requests and communications from the audience. I have two up here in order that I received them. Is that correct too? Okay. First one is from Val Early, a pool update for SCCA.
As a reminder for everyone, when two of you, when you come up, please give us your full name and your address, and then there's a 5-minute time limit.
Okay. Val Early, Brookings, Oregon. And I'm here on behalf of South Coast Community Aquatics. And I wanted to come and give you an update of our winter pool pilot project with the city of Crescent City. I've got some numbers that I'd like to share with you about the pool. And first thing I want to do is I want to say thank you to all the city staff that has been so helpful to us. You know, they've bent over backwards to help us do things, including, you know, getting our schedules out. Sometimes they remind us we're a little late, but that's okay because, you know, we're pushing it together and trying to make it all work. So the pool is open about 6 hours a day during the week and then a little bit longer on the weekends. So it is kind of a limited programming, but the response has been really good. So since the 1st of December when we opened, we have had 1,963 individuals take advantage of the pool. And that includes, that does not include, sorry, the lessons that we just recently started. And so that translates into some monthly memberships, also some, you know, just open swim, rec swim, that kind of thing. And then we also received a grant to help with some of the programming for the kids and to help some of the underprivileged kids to be able to afford some lessons. And so right now, the split between the two entities is a little over $14,000. So we exceeded the $10,000 that we said was our minimum. What we didn't anticipate was the high cost of propane. It was really hard to really budget for that since we didn't have anything to go by. But the propane bill alone is a little over $29,000 so far. And our total expenses are closer to around $32,000. We've been pretty good as far as everything else goes. But anyway, it's been a great experience so far. We will give you a complete update and a complete report after the season closes, and we've been able to close out kind of the books with Crescent City, do some feedback from them. We are running a recertification class right after the pool closes on the 1st of March to be able to recertify some of our lifeguards so that we are set and ready to go for our summer season. So. Anyway, just want to say thank you again for believing in South Coast Community Aquatics and the Brookings Pool and what it means to this community, because it's evident that people are enjoying it. They particularly like it that it's 84 or 85 degrees every day. So, and it doesn't matter if it's raining or windy or whatever in there. It's just still really a nice swim. So, and do you have any questions?
I don't have questions. I just want to thank you for your consistent communication in working with Crescent City as well, just making sure that all comes together and finding support for underprivileged children here and getting them lessons and what they need to stay safe. So thank you so much for your whole organization.
Well, and I have to thank Advanced Health. They have been a great partner for South Coast Community Aquatics, and they stepped up when we reached out on this winter season. So. Yeah, they were great. And the staff from Crescent City has been really, you know, it's a different facility, so they've taken some time to really understand our facility and to try to adopt some of the things that we do so that it wasn't culture shock for most of our patrons. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and then last up, Ms. Connie Hunter. Housing updates.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm Connie Hunter, 819 Paradise Lane, Brookings, Oregon. And I'm here talking about housing, and I'm just going to say it straight out. I've been one of those people that put my sweat equity where my mouth is when it comes to housing, because I understood early on that there was a housing shortage. The League of Women Voters decided they were going to have 3 town halls, this is a number of years ago, on services for unhoused citizens. I said, you know what, I'll help, I'll organize, I'll do whatever it takes, but I'm going to add in the concept of housing first. and we have to talk about housing along with that subject. Afterwards, I came to the city of Brookings because I knew that we didn't have a needs assessment, and the city of Brookings stepped up in a big way, spent $35,000, took the lead, and created the first housing needs assessment in Curry County. In addition to that, when the Oregon Housing and Community Services was starting to build their agency to really come up with some strategies to address the housing needs for the state, I was able to go and speak in public comments. But I came to the city council first and asked that the city of Brookings would send a letter and support the idea that, yes, we do need affordable housing, and this city of Brookings stepped up and gave us that letter. We've been in the conversation with the state from that point on in a big way. And it was City Manager Gary Milliman who helped me understand more about the Coos Curry Housing Authority. And when I went on the Coos Curry Housing Authority, Tony Barron resigned. So we lost our city staffer on there. Now, I don't know if that was because I was going on or they're like, oh, she can handle it. I don't know. You'll have to ask Tony. But we miss Tony being in that capacity. But one of the things that has happened since being on that housing authority is originally the executive director, the previous executive director said we do not have the capacity to build the capacity to what? Facilitate housing projects in Curry County. Well, that's not the right way to start off and be in compliance with really the goals and objectives of the state of Oregon. And so we spoke to that. Right now we have 2 housing projects happening in Curry County in Gold Beach. That's going to more than double the few affordable housing units that existed under the Housing Authority. But tomorrow there's a meeting. I'm hoping that someone from the city staff or from the city council might consider attending. We're actually going to do our executive director evaluation of our fairly new executive director who has extraordinary skills as a person who knows how to develop things in a way that not only engages and guides policy, but also gets things done on the ground. Today, the Oregon State Legislature had a Senate committee meeting on housing and development. In that really well-reported hearing, they discussed the Oregon Housing Needs Analysis and also the League of Oregon Cities Infrastructure Survey. And I encourage you as a group and as individuals to sink your teeth into what that means for our neck of the woods. We know, for example, and I think I mentioned it last time I was here, that, for example, with veterans housing, there was, $4 million of the amount that was appropriated in 2024 did not get used. It rolls over into 2025, so we've got $9 million in the state coffers to build housing for veterans. Now, our housing authority and Core Response are working to do a small housing project in Gold Beach. And my question here tonight is, when can we get these things started on behalf of Brookings? Now, years ago, we had the opportunity to go to a USDA rural development training. No one from the city was going. The county wasn't going to include a conversation about the city, so I went. And I made the decision to tell a fib while I was there. Our county economic development person left early because it was snowing. I knew she was going to be gone. We got a half an hour with the regional people and the people from Washington DC, USDA Rural Development folks. So get a half an hour, I put her name down, I put my name down, I put us at the end. I knew she wasn't gonna be there and I'd have them for a full hour. And I confessed it to the regional guy who was a Marine. He understood and they gave me the full hour. When I left there, I came back with the package of funding that the city ultimately applied for that grant. The thing is, the snow was so bad, and that's why the economic development person left. I rolled my truck on the way home. So I had to be trailered down here. So on Monday morning, I hobbled in, and Mayor Hedenskog had office hours at that time, and I walked in, I said, here. He said, well, let's take it back to the city manager. I said, no. I'm hurting, I gotta go, you take it. But that's how that grant originally got here. So I put my sweat equity into this, and I'm encouraging each and every one of you to have the same heart for the need for addressing affordable housing in the city of Brookings.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
Okay, that was it. The two oral requests and communications were done. Moving on to item F, consent calendar. We'll go ahead and read all 6 of these. So number 1, to approve council minutes for January 13th, 2025. Number 2, to receive a monthly financial report for December 2024. Number 3, to reappoint Ryan Renault to the Budget Committee. Number 4, reappoint Teresa Mercurio to the Parks and Rec Commission. Number 5, reappoint Dan Bratton to the Parks and Rec Commission. And number 6, reappoint Michael E. Worthy to the Parks and Rec Commission. Any discussion? We do need to have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar, but first, I just wanted to thank the people that applied for reappointment, since they're all reappointed, so thanks for continuing to serve, and I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second?
I second.
Okay.
Call the question?
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Fulton.
Yes.
Counselor Pereira. Yes. Counselor Malmberg.
Yes.
Mayor Hodges.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item G, TPAC, Tourism Promotion Advisory Committee. And I'll hand that over to City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, tonight, before you were going to discuss TPAC, it was brought up a couple meetings ago in regards to possibly taking a look at re-implementing TPAC from its original form from 2014. As most of you know, at the middle of 2020, we were in the middle of a pandemic, and that's when the decision was made by the council at the time to disband and take TPAC out of commission and put the onus back on staff. But for, I think, most of us that were not here at the time, with the exception of Lori, and she's going to be here to answer some questions if you have a little bit about the history. So we'll go to the first slide. Next one here. We're just going to talk quickly about basically 4 key items: the conception, the makeup of the committee, some expenditures, some history with the expenditures, and the repeal and amendment of it in 2020. Next slide. The actual conception was discussed in 2012. They established a tourism promotion advisory committee, and the staff, this was a group that's supposed to work with the staff and contract service providers in the development and implementation of a tourism promotion program, and then report back to the council on its effectiveness. But in August of 2013, the council indicated they wanted TPAC to explore alternative structures for its committee and explore a feasibility of a joint relationship for tourism with the Harbor's Port District and the Harbor Chamber of Commerce. Following that, the next slide, in April of 2014, there was a workshop. The council discussed staff's concerns that TPAC was doing more than just making recommendations, directing staff, and asked that an official ordinance be formally drafted and define more of the committee's role. Ordinance 14-0-732, which is very similar to the Urban Renewal Advisory Commission, laid the groundwork for what was known as the TPAC. So if you look at the actual original conception of this back in 2014, the mission and goals, it's the next slide, were simply to promote tourism, advise the council on the use of our TOT tax, revenues allotted for tourism promotion, and the goal of the city council is to extend tourism and promotion funds in a coordinated effort with funding to be provided for a few selected projects and events each year. The next slide. The powers and the duties. The TPAC was an advisory to the council. They had no authority to spend or approve expenditures, just make its recommendations through the council and its minutes. The committees should serve at the pleasure of the council. The committee membership was honorary without any compensation, and the committee meetings were always open to the public, and there was minutes provided after each meeting for the public and for the council with or without amendments, and just some parliamentary procedure there. The actual makeup of TPAC, all members shall be residents of Curry County. At least 4 of the 7 shall be residents of Brookings. Non-residents must have an economic interest, such as property ownership, business ownership, employment. The members shall not be officials or employees with the city, and no member of any city council appointed board, committee or committees shall simultaneously serve on the tourism advisory. Basically, you can't sit on multiple commissions. And meeting minutes shall be recorded by the city manager or his designee. Then it kind of talked about, which is very similar, when you set up a committee like this, they stagger it with different lengths of terms with different membership. That way there's a continual rolling of members coming off. Not everybody, the last thing you want to happen is all 7 of them coming off at the same time. So, and then they also stipulated that no member shall be eligible to serve for more than 2 full terms. Vacancies created by midterm resignation will be filled by appointment, just like you did tonight on a couple of the other committees. Members may be removed by a majority vote of the city council for any reason during the time or tenure, and failure to attend 50% of the scheduled meetings during a 12-month period resulted in automatic termination unless they were excused by the committee's chair. Expenditures, I won't go through each and every year, but I have provided each of you the TPAC expenditures each year that were utilized during those times. Lori was very heavily involved in this group, and they eventually started breaking it down by advertising and events. They did different types of advertising, as you can see, and different types of events. You'll see when you go through some of the history of the expenditures here, a lot of the same events were getting funded each year for that. You see some of the very similar ones. Some of them you saw once and never saw come back again. Sometimes events, there'll be a group of folks that will try an event, and because of its not fitting or lack of trying to find people to run the event, sometimes they fall to the wayside. Again, each one of these is broken down each year by the services that were provided, and but it was kind of nice seeing all the different events, how much was funded, which ones were funded, and importantly also, one of the things that we'll also add on this is, starting back in 2013, we were kind of in the, what I would say, the beginning phases of social media. I mean, social media had only been around for about maybe 5 or 6 years at that time. And now we're finding that a lot of folks are finding their events and these type of things via social media. And there's a lot of advertising that's pushed by doing that. So we know that's something else. You know, radio, TV is important, but as you all know, trying to get the best bang for your bucks when it comes to advertising is crucial out there. So, like I said, again, you can go through these at your leisure and look at the different expenditures by year. Some of the years you could tell they, you know, had, you know, somewhere up to around $50,000 a year as a total budget for the advertising, print media, and events. And this goes through all the way up until 2020. And then what I also did is that last slide, if you'd go, Brooklyn, to the very, right there, is I put in, you know, since we don't exactly have a TPAC anymore, but, you know, this is all approved every year via budget, but these are some of the things that is still continuing to go on with the TOT funds, but just not through the format of an actual TPAC, but rather through basically an application process that's submitted to staff, reviewed, and recommendations from that point forward. The next slide you'll have, it was repealed, amended back in June of 2020. There was a motion back in June of 2020 to disband the tourism, the TPAC at the request of the city manager, bring back the related ordinance changes. So what happened was the next month, and we'll jump forward here in a second, but essentially what happened was TPAC was disbanded. But there is some good news about this is it was actually not really disbanded or repealed. It was actually just amended. They essentially went back and struck through the ordinances at that time. So I'm assuming that would make it, if the council so chooses to bring it back, a little bit easier than starting from scratch. So, but it looked like it was an amendment, which was edits, which was basically striking through all of the ordinance itself. And it essentially went, and Lori can, like I said, attest to what kind of happened during the summer of 2020 when it was repealed, and essentially like I said, it went back to that. And I think there was some discussion also about having, instead of TPAC, maybe a hybrid of stakeholders in a committee capacity, to where these requests for events or requests for advertising were looked at on a annual or semi-annual basis as needed, as opposed to having a monthly meeting. I'm assuming that's what they were doing before.
Yes.
And a little bit more time efficient for both those on the committee and staff itself. So, but I wanted to kind of give a brief overview, since none of you on the council were, I believe, on the council at the time that it was disbanded. And I know there's been some discussion, as, you know, looking at different ways of, you know, getting more bang for our buck via advertising and the events that we sponsor. So at this time, I'd open it up for any questions. This, again, tonight is strictly for informational purposes only. We had something that was going to be on the agenda that was going to be much more substantial, but it ended up getting pushed. So I wanted to, while we had a chance, had some time to bring this forward and answer any questions. And I do have Lori Zemer. She's here tonight. And she'd be glad to answer any questions that you have as well.
Thank you.
I have some comments. So I think, first of all, the city, the way I understand it, we're required to be involved in tourism promotion with a portion of the TOT money. I think business owners in the community that are involved in tourism, retail, business people in general are a lot more familiar with what works and what doesn't work with tourism promotion. And I think if we can use stakeholders and members of the community to make recommendations to the council, not only brainstorm ideas, but come up with specific projects to promote tourism and economic development at the same time. We should use it. We have a lot of smart people in the community, and I think they are better suited to make these recommendations to the council and the city versus just city staff. So I strongly favor bringing back TPAC, but also expanding it where that same group has responsibility to make recommendations for economic development in the community and also the downtown area. And I think the city needs to do a lot more to promote tourism, and the more that we promote it, the more money the city's going to generate in the motel tax, the transient tax, and more people will come here. And as we know, when a tourist comes to town, they're spending money at several businesses, and that money changes hands several times and expands. So I think we need to move forward with expanding this committee and getting it back on track as soon as possible.
I had a question for Lori, and I don't know if you don't have to get into too much detail, but you were around when they chose to disband TPAC. And, can you talk a little bit about why that decision was made? And
well, at that point in time, most of what TPAC was determining was the events proposals and recommending to City Council if they should be approved or not. We had pretty much set up a media schedule. As you can see, we put a lot into social media or advertising, let's call it. And so that was pretty much all set and done. So at that point, with us just doing events, and the events were teetering off at that point, we were getting the regular events, but not many people were proposing new events. We just didn't have that much to have a meeting every month.
When we talked about this a little bit at our last, well, not last, but previous workshops, a few issues were brought up that I think would require addressing, because I do support some sort of a committee, whether it's expanded, as Councilor Martin said, to other areas or not. But it felt like, at least in some of the feedback, and Lori, maybe you can add to that, that there was some difference of opinion as to whether what was done was successful or not. I remember a discussion about a video that was made, and some people said they never saw it, and others thought it was great. And so for me, again, I do support this general idea or concept, but I do think moving forward, we would need to make sure that we could track the success of what was actually proposed and done to see if we need to keep doing it or not, instead of just basing the results on people's opinions. And I know that's not always easy to do, but maybe as a committee and a council, we could put that together and figure out some sort of a mechanism, if you will, to measure success and the different things that are done. And then the other part was sort of the role of the city with the committee. And it, again, it was a little bit subjective, I think, in the way it was expressed. There wasn't specifics necessarily brought up, but just, the committee would sort of come up with an idea and then expect the city workers or whoever to do it, and then they would be like, wait a second, we didn't know we were supposed to do this. And so a little bit of friction there. So I think, having the committee as it is set up with clear guidelines and expectations as to what they are there for and what they are not there for. And then just in general, and the committee probably had this, but it seemed to me that there was some thoughts, as it wasn't really clear, but that it was the process was standardized and everyone understood it, and it was fair. Obviously, we're talking about money, so when money gets involved, people, can throw out favoritism or whatever, whether it's really happening or not. And we have to be really careful about making sure that everyone understands there's no favoritism, there's clear guidelines, and everyone and anyone can come in and follow those and has the same access if they follow everything that anyone else does. But again, those are all sort of the nuances of a larger project that I think is very important, and I totally support and would be behind it. And I think a lot of what you had in here already were a structure, not being on multiple committees and timelines and all. I think that's great. Maybe just a little bit more work on the exact guidelines and limitations of the committee itself and the expectations of the city in response to that. And then, just making sure everyone understands the process, from application to obtaining the money and then measuring the results.
Yeah, I like Councilor Martin's idea of having some type of committee to, improve community engagement on tourism and economic development. And I'm open to some version of that. Maybe not necessarily exactly what we had before, but maybe a biannual or something along those lines, committee and meeting of interested business person, Chamber of Commerce, some of the people that have come from the downtown, I forgot the name of the downtown development, got to screw it up. But anyway, they came and spoke, and maybe some kind of a, twice a year or something along those lines, maybe not as frequent as once a month, but some kind of feedback from the community that would help us to have some input. Anyway, it's been a long-winded thing.
Yeah, I believe the only kind of feedback that kind of lined up with Mayor Hodges was the fact that some folks said, we just got to make sure, I think every once in a while there's a conflict of interest from those that were on the board versus events and those type of things. So we just got to make sure that those expectations are set way ahead of time so we don't worry about that. So, but I think that's kind of where I was told sometimes some of the friction would come in for those type of things, but those could be easily handled with just some basic parliamentary procedures of, recusing oneself from voting anything that has to deal with that's going to,
Well, I think that's the benefit of the committee, right? You have this committee now that's really driving things to the extent that they're allowed. And then, the city sort of is able to be off to the side now when maybe an accusation or something else comes forward because there's this separate committee. So I really do support that. I think it takes some of the load. I mean, that would be the hope. It takes some of the load off of the city. And then allows for a lot more input from our true stakeholders. And to Councilor Martin's statement, the really knowledgeable people, they're the business owners and the people that live here. Yeah.
I think also the makeup of the previous TPAC, I think there were people on there who weren't very knowledgeable, or how much do they bring to the table of knowing what works and what doesn't work and how to promote tourism when they're not involved in the tourism industry, and maybe they don't want to see. So some of the people that were on there don't have anything to do with tourism or local businesses. So I think we can find the right people in the community to serve on it, and it would be a more effective committee.
I agree with that. Oh, go ahead. You go first.
It seems to me, I was just going to say, it seems to me someone with some expertise in marketing could be very valuable on a committee like that as well. Like Mayor Hodges mentioned, or I'm sorry, Mr. Rundell mentioned, City Manager Rundell, the way of advertising, media advertising has changed drastically. And social media really is a huge driver of that. So someone with some input in that regard of what works today currently, I think would be very beneficial also.
Yeah.
So I will just say that I would like to see an expanded group of people professionals that do have key pieces in there. Tourism, economic development, people, market is a wonderful idea, right? And just making sure that there are goals and things set in place with the good evaluation system, right? Well, we can tell real quick with the evaluation systems if we put a good one in place. That would best help. I want community input from the beginning, so I think it's good.
So to be clear, what do you see for our next steps?
I can bring back, based on some of the recommendations tonight, it may be in a draft format at a workshop coming up pretty soon, and go into a little bit more discussion and bring it back kind of like what it was back in 2014, and bring it back in the form of an ordinance, and bring it if that's the desire of the council.
I think it overwhelmingly is. Yeah, everyone.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone's pretty supportive.
Some version doesn't need to be exactly like it
Yeah,
was. And
exactly,
Take
'cause
a close look at
and I do
what
put-
worked and what didn't.
Absolutely, yeah.
And coming up with something that.
And I'll spend more time with some of the staff that were involved in that as well, as far as what we're, go through some of the minutes and things as to, what worked, what didn't work. I think that's important also. Councilor Martin said, trying to find a matrix is sometimes a little bit more difficult on some of these events, but I think you can, if a group or a group of individuals has decided they're going to go out and put on an event, they have to be able to, come up with some form of matrix to, figure out, how many hotel rooms were rented out, how much, how many people attended the event, and how much was spent on advertising. And so those are the type of things that can be utilized as well. But, I'm a prime example. I've shared the story before. When I was in Siskiyou County, I, wanted to get out of the heat or get out of the mountains for a while. And this was kind of a nice safe haven for us to come down, and because the temperature year-round was pretty consistent, as well as, the restaurants and things that we didn't get to experience in Siskiyou County. And so it was just one of those things when we decided we needed beach time, Brookings was, at the top of the list. So that's something that, didn't happen overnight, but it happened because of word of mouth just in Siskiyou County with folks telling us, the places to go eat, the things to go do when we get here. And we were the prime example, pulling up the camper out to one of the parks and going to Fred Meyer and loading up with groceries for the week. And I mean, that's how you start, that returning business over and over again.
Yeah, I think I shared the story with a few of you, but we went down to San Francisco the weekend before Christmas because my son lives down there, and we were just hanging out. And there's a big parking garage, probably the biggest one right next to Union Square. And on both sides of it, on the entrance and the exit, is a big Samuel H. Boardman sign with a picture of Natural Bridges. Cool. Yeah, I took a picture on my phone actually because, it was probably 5 foot by 3 foot, just picture of Natural Bridges.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I don't know how effective or not, but I definitely agree that the beauty of our area, and especially when you're coming from a large city and you want to escape, is very attractive, and we need to get it out there.
Absolutely. Another comment on that line. So today I fished 6 people from Siskiyou County, and they said they were from McLeod, and they called it the cold because they said it was so cold there right now. The other guys from Mount Shasta. The reason they were here in town is they watched on the news. They saw the high temperatures in Brookings, which were still cold, but it was above freezing. If they hadn't been above freezing and without the wind, so that's why they came here. And that's the people that we need to target, are people that can take a day trip or a quick getaway to come to the coast to either escape the hot weather or escape the cold weather. Also, I don't know if this is out of line, but I see Mike's in the audience, and he has talked about TPAC with us before, and I would like to hear briefly, in just a couple of minutes, of why he thinks or doesn't think TPAC is important to the community, and how TPAC can or can't help the community and the council make decisions.
Guess I didn't really prepare anything, but
Yeah, please.
Don't you name, address, and everything?
Councilman Martin called you up. It's all on him now.
All right. I think the TPAC was a very effective thing. I think things could have, been better and more efficient, but I think it did a lot. Our first contact with it was in 2015 when we started the Oktoberfest here, which we ran for 5 years with Raymond from Vista Pub, and it was money from TPAC that helped us get that first event going. And that was a good event here for the 5 years till COVID shut us down. But we did numerous events. We took over the Memorial Day weekend event, and the city helped fund that. I think they helped with 4th of July one year when we picked up the Labor Day weekend when it got dropped one year. I think we got help with that. I think a lot of those just wouldn't have happened without it. And when the port quit doing events down there, there was really a dearth of, anyone available to pick that up. When I first started going to the meetings, I was told the general idea was here, what we're trying to do is get heads in beds, but we're really trying to do this when it isn't already super busy. So not really the busiest weekends, not summer so much. So when we started our Beat the Brewers event, it was in April, and the city helped us get that going. We ran that for a few years. The Mushroom Festival, I think, is a phenomenal thing because it's an off-season thing. It's growing every year. I've mentioned that talking to you guys before. But I think, one, I'd really like to look at all the numbers from the last 5, 6, 7 years of where all the money's gone, and looking at, I was under the impression there was $100,000 total available, and then someone told me, so I don't have the official numbers, but that budget actually annually was $400,000. So I would just like to get a clearer picture of that, because the meetings I went to, what I understood was that the TPAC, their whole budget was $35,000. And they only got to really work with spending 20 of it because a lot of it was already designated for advertising and stuff. But I do think it was very beneficial to get events going. I think when it was disbanded, it wasn't really the right decision at the time. But the way it was handled for a couple years in between too was not really promoting events, because I talked to 2 different people who were trying to do events, and they were only offered $500 instead of what the maximum had been of $3,000, and was later dropped to $2,000. But they couldn't even get the money till after the event. So, if you're going to bring it back and you're going to help fund things, I'd recommend making sure that the money gets out ahead of time, because that's an incentive to get things going. Offering some money afterwards when you have the receipts, that's not going to get things going so well. But I do think it helped get a lot of things going here. There's been several others. Art on the Coast, I don't know if they got anything to help them, but or Pirate Festival, I assume they probably did when they started. But I do think it was a big motivating factor for a lot of the events that got started.
Thank you.
Well, I can, like I say, bring this back to a future workshop, and we're getting ready to go into budget season, so if so be it, and we'll work with Lou and the budget committee as well.
All right.
And I would be remiss, Wendy, our new grants and projects manager, has also indicated she'd like to be a part of this process as well. So she's got an extensive background in public relations and marketing, so I think she'd be great for this as well.
Yeah, and to Mike, thank you for standing up and saying that. To his point, having this process sort of open like this and then transparent, again, knowing what the funds are, knowing where they're going, that type of thing, is necessary to instill trust, but also make sure it is all those other things we talked about, fair and everyone has the same approach. And those are some of the things that I do remember. So thank you for standing up and talking about that from our previous discussion about this. Was just seemed like there was a little bit of confusion, expectations were not clear, and then the process was a little bit lacked transparency. So thank you. If there's nothing else on the TPAC, I'll move on to item H, remarks from mayor, councilors, and city manager. Anyone?
I will say that I believe since the last meeting, the police chief McCray and I did go do the first of the My Cities at the school, and went really well, really well. Kids loved it, and they're looking forward to meeting the mayor next month when he does his presentation from 100 rowdy third graders. So, yeah. So whenever I mentioned that the mayor was coming, and they go, "Are you the mayor?" And I said, "No," and they go, "Oh." I was like, "He'll be here next.
You better
He'll be
bring
here.
it.
So, you better not let him down."
Oh boy, the pressure's on. Pressure's on. Thank you. Anyone else? No?
Oh, actually, I'll just speak really quickly on, I went to one of the Boy Scout troops here and a couple weeks ago, and had a wonderful discussion about what my role is and what's our role just in general, civic responsibility, and it was really fun seeing all those little kids. Their eyes were bright and wanting to know more. So just continue working with our young people, because they are our future, and having them kind of have an idea before they get too old and can't do it, but to get involved when they're young and start voicing their thoughts and their opinions. Our young people are really important to this community, and anything we can do to help them, they're really smart, these young ones, and so anything we can do to help support that, I think is wonderful. It was great.
I think you'll appreciate, Christy, that there is going to be a youth summit tomorrow at the City Day at the Capitol. So always think of you and your encouragement to us to include our youth and get them to participate. And I also just wanted to encourage all my fellow counselors to maybe send a note of not just thank you and appreciation to Jason Berger for his service as a canine handler, but also condolences. I've been in that spot of having a spouse who had to put down a canine, and I can tell you that they are partners to them, and it's really difficult. So I would just encourage you guys to send him notes of appreciation, but also condolences.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll go real quick. Just a few things. Thank you, Councilor Pareda, for being our representative up at the city day up at the Capitol, which is, if you didn't know, that's why she's absent up here in the chair, but she's here with us via the phone. So thank you very much for taking time out of your life to go up and represent Brookings up there. That's excellent. And I know you have a few items on your list to talk to people about, so we're excited for when you return to hear your report. I also thank everyone here that has or will be getting out in the community and doing some of these events, speaking to the young ones or other events that we've had. I think it is very important. And amazingly, it sounds like the kids like it, so I'll try not to have their eyes glaze over when I talk. The pressure's on there. I had it written down, but Councilor Pareda expressed it better than I could about Canine Nova, losing her. That's definitely always tough for the community, but I can only imagine for Officer Barrier. So, yeah, we need to express condolences there. So thank you for that reminder. And then the last piece that I had written down was just Connie Hunter brought up housing. You know, the city of Brookings has a lot of money invested in infrastructure for additional housing, as well as for improvements for current. And there's plans laid out for large expansion of our housing, and specifically for workforce housing. And so I just, want to put this out here, sort of, not to give any specifics, but just in an all-around statement that a lot of these things that we look to, such as housing, are very necessary. And some people might not understand, well, why does it take so long? Why can't we just move forward and build more houses? And, and it just isn't that easy. It's a difficult thing. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of planning. And that in itself is a lot. But in the state of Oregon, we are also unfortunately having to deal with increasing regulation. And I'll spare everyone the details of what that is, but I just want everyone to be aware of, who you vote for is huge. And our governor, this is just a matter of fact, has number one on her agenda, workforce housing, or housing in general, an increase of that. Of all the things on the needs of the state of Oregon, number one is housing. So you would think that the government would be rather helpful in expanding our housing and building new housing. And I wouldn't say that's the case. Now, I'm not blaming the governor herself on this. There's government agencies that are causing this increase in regulations, and also increasing the cost in the housing, of course, due to these new regulations. So pay attention who you vote for, and know that they're going to have the reins of signing these regulations in place. And a lot of them don't ever come to the ballot box, the regulations themselves, but the person always does, and the position always does. So when we see these needs, remember those when you're in the ballot box, and see who will be helpful in addressing those needs, and of course, workforce housing. But I know up here from our position, and I know Connie, people like her in their positions, whether it's volunteer or not, will do everything they can to continue to try to improve and gain access to additional housing, for sure. We're all committed to that. So anyways, I'll stop there.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to piggyback on a comment that you made about the importance of voting. I just want to also put out there that in the state of Oregon, legislation really is what is called grassroots, and contacting your representatives and letting them know firsthand your concerns and specifically your stories of how our community is impacted is highly important. And this is the season to be doing that, but it's also a continual year in, year out, day in, day out process. So contact your representatives, know who they are, contact them, let them know your concerns, because your voices do matter.
Thank you. Absolutely. I'll shut up now. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. All right, then we'll adjourn at 7:56.